What is up then, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today, guys, I've got a video ranking Chelsea's 19 to 20 squad. Today, guys, if you are brand new to the channel, please do subscribe down below, and if you do end up enjoying the video, please do leave a like. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter in the description down below. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so the categories that we can rank these players into is the top one we have elite, then we have first team, bench / squad players, ones for the future, loan, sell, and donkeys. Okay, we're going to start off with Olivier Giroud. And Olivier Giroud in the 2019-20 season has only scored 2 goals in the Premier League. So for me, I think Olivier Giroud is a very underrated Premier League striker. I think he offers a lot to the team, especially in his hold-up play. I don't think any other striker in the Premier League can hold up the ball the same as Olivier Giroud. I think he uses his height and his strength very well to link other players into the game. I think his age and experience also brings something to the squad that lacks, especially with how young the Chelsea squad is, and with Frank Lampard being a young manager himself. I think he brings something to the squad that is quite different, and for me, I think he goes into bench / squad players. Coming off the bench and making a regular start, for me, I think that's where Olivier Giroud needs to fit into this squad, especially if Chelsea are going to bring in a new striker, and they also have Tammy Abraham. Next up, we have youngster Reece James. I'm a big fan of Reece James. I remember watching him against Derby for Wigan last season. I've rated him. I thought he carried out Wigan from avoiding relegation last season. I really rate him as a young player then, and he's even stepped up his game even further this season, playing for Frank Lampard at Chelsea. Reece James has 2 assists to his name, which isn't much when you think in the grand scheme of things, but for me, I think his potential and his ability and his confidence as a young player is everything that Chelsea need. He hasn't played every game. I think Frank Lampard has preferred Azpilicueta at right back, which is Reece James' preferred position. But he has played right back himself, with Azpilicueta moving to left back. But for me, Reece James has so much potential as a player, and I think he will be an England player one day. And for me, I think he has to go into first team. Then next up, we have N'Golo Kante. If you'd asked me about N'Golo Kante last season, and the season before, and the season before that, I would have said elite straight away. But I don't think I can put him in there anymore. Performances have definitely dropped this season, but not so far as for him to be a bad player. But he's just not on the N'Golo Kante level that we've seen before. And for me, I think he does have to go into the first team category. Then next up, we have goalkeeper, Chelsea's number 1, Kepa Arrizabalaga. For me, Kepa's performances this season have seemed like they have lacked confidence. I do think Kepa is a quality keeper, and when you watch him on the ball and commanding his penalty area, I do think he's just lacking that little bit of confidence that does come when mistakes do start to slip into your game as a keeper. But for me, I think he's a quality player, and I don't think there's many other goalkeepers out there that Chelsea could reasonably get for them to be better than Kepa. And for me, I think Kepa has to go into the first team category as well. Next up, we have Cesar Azpilicueta. For me, I think Azpilicueta is such an underrated Premier League player in general, and he's been a quality servant to Chelsea throughout the seasons, and really is a quality player. Obviously, Chelsea's club captain this season. And for me, I think this season will be his last season where he's played pretty much most games, with his pace proving to be a problem. But obviously his defending ability cannot be questioned. But for me, I think as he slows down as a player, and as Chelsea want to be pushing for the title again, I think he does have to move to bench / squad players. As I think he's a character that Chelsea still need around the squad if they are going to continue to bring in these younger players. Next up, we have Jamie Cunningham. For me, I think it's one of those things. Third choice goalkeeper. Has to go out on loan, in my opinion, to see what he's actually made of, whether he's even going to make it at Chelsea. But for me, if he's no good on loan, he would go into sell the category for me. So for me, I'm going to put him in loan. Next up, we have Willian. Currently out of a contract at the end of the season. I'm wanting a 2-year deal, I believe, but Chelsea are not willing to give him that. Willian on his day can be a quality player, especially likes to show up against Tottenham. But for me, I think Willian's time at Chelsea is done. especially with the young players such as Callum Hudson-Odoi coming through and the arrival of Ziyech next season for Chelsea. For me, Willian has to go into the sell category, even though he's out of a contract. I think he needs to leave the club, in my opinion. Next up, we have second choice goalkeeper Willy Caballero, 38 years of age now. Another one where I think his time's done at the club. I think his time in football is almost done. For me, another one to go in the sell category, so you can give a younger goalkeeper a chance at second choice. Next up, we have midfield maestro Mateo Kovacic. For me, has to go straight into the elite section. Completely dominated Chelsea's midfield this season, been that key man, overshadowing the likes of N'Golo Kante. Last season under Sarri, we didn't get to see the best of Mateo Kovacic, but under Lampard, we really are seeing the quality player come through. And saying he was the only player Chelsea brought in, I think that was a good buy from them. And for me, it goes in the elite section. Next up, we have youngster Billy Gilmour. For me, he goes into the ones for the future. I don't think he's quite first team quality yet in terms of a confidence and strength to run a Premier League midfield. He has obviously played Premier League games now and against Liverpool in the FA Cup, where he was an unbelievable player. For a player to play week in, week out as a youngster is hard, especially in the Premier League, and I think he is one for the future to be slowly blooded in by Lampard. There's no doubting whatsoever how much of a quality Billy Gilmour is, but he's just not at that level yet. Then next up, we have Ross Barkley. I think Chelsea fans have already made up their decision on Ross Barkley. He can be a quality player on his day. If you give Ross Barkley the time, he will be a good player, but his form at Chelsea ever since his move from Everton hasn't been great, and I think he does just need to move on from the club and just to change up his career, especially if he wants to continue getting into the England squad. For me, he's going in sell. Then next up, we have Fikayo Tomori. For me, Fikayo Tomori is a first team defender in the Premier League. I don't know why he hasn't been playing as much for Chelsea as he was at the start of the season, especially with some of his performances in the Champions League. For me, Frank Lampard does need to be playing Fikayo Tomori quite a bit more. Quality defender, so able on the ball as well, with his passing ability being top quality. Then we have Pedro. I'm going to put Pedro into sell as well. I think his time at the club is done. Slowly being taken out of the first team, being given less and less starts. I think Pedro just needs to move somewhere else to finish his career. I don't think it would be good for him to finish at Chelsea, especially with how little game he's going to get. And then we have Andreas Christensen. Andreas Christensen can split decisions for Chelsea fans, whether he is any good or not. For me, I quite rate Andreas Christensen, but I don't think he's quite that top level Premier League defender for me. I think he is a bench level backup defender for the Premier League. If you want to be pushing for the Premier League, I don't think he is your man. Then we have Mason Mount. As a Derby fan, I'm a big fan of Mason Mount, and I think Mason Mount's such an underrated player in the Premier League in total. He's seen as Frank Lampard's project, but for me, I think Frank Lampard's just seen something in Mason Mount that some people can't. He's a real quality player on the ball, and if you watch him actually play his game, and the stats prove that when Mason Mount's in the squad, Chelsea are a better team. And I think for me, Mason Mount goes into the first team. And then we have Callum Hudson-Odoi. Callum Hudson-Odoi has struggled a bit since returning from his injury. I think that means he has to go into one for the future. I think he's proved he's quite not ready to start in the Premier League yet, but he definitely will be at one point. He will be one of England's best wingers, in my opinion. He definitely belongs in one for the future. And then we have Antonio Rudiger. For me, I would sell Antonio Rudiger while there are German clubs interested. I don't think he's quite the Premier League defender that Chelsea fans thought he was going to be. Quite controversial, probably putting him in sell, but for me, I think he needs to go. Next up, we have Pulisic, and for me, goes into first team. Arrived from Borussia Dortmund at the start of the season, and I think because of his injury, we haven't really been able to see the best of him. But like we saw against Burnley, Pulisic is undoubtedly top quality for a Premier League winger, and I think first team quality. Next up, we have Tammy Abraham. I think this is going to go into the first team category as well. People do have doubts over Tammy Abraham's ability after a few loan spells in the Championship, whether he can make that step up, but I think he has made that step up quite well. I think as that Chelsea number 9, I think he's starting to break the Chelsea number 9 curse, and I think for me, as he grows and matures and gets even better as a young footballer, I do believe he can cement that number 9 shirt at Chelsea. Then we have Marcos Alonso. A lot of people call Marcos Alonso a donkey or say sell, but why there's no one else available for you, and your left backs are quite hard to come by, high quality ones, unless you can get Davies out of Bayern Munich, which is unlikely. You're going to need someone like Marcos Alonso to be able to sit on the bench and a squad player. Marcos Alonso has proved that if Chelsea do need to play that 5 on the back as a left wing back, Marcos Alonso has undoubtedly unbelievable amounts of quality there. Can be questioned in terms of his defensive positional shape in a 4 at the back and does seem to struggle, but I think as a squad player he is alright. Then we have Jorginho. For me, other than the quality he brings with his penalties, I think Jorginho needs to go into the bench / squad players. I think Chelsea can do better with their midfielders. Although Chelsea's midfield is probably one of the best in the Premier League, I think when Jorginho's not in it, I think it is better. For me, if you're to ask me what the best Chelsea midfield possible is, I'd say Mateo Kovacic, Mason Mount and N'Golo Kante. Probably controversial that one, but I think Jorginho, he hasn't got too much to his game that Chelsea can use. I think under a Sarri ball system, I think Jorginho is a class player, but other than that, I think a bench place and a squad place for Jorginho is where he belongs. Next up we have Michy Batshuayi. For me, has to go into the donkey category. The only one I might put into donkey, I think, because he's not a very good Premier League striker in my opinion. I know it's harsh, I think he could play for a bottom side, maybe relegation scrapping Premier League team, but I just don't think he's very good at all. Next up we have Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I really do rate Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Been out injured for a while now. We haven't been able to see the best and we don't know how he's going to come back. But for me, he goes into first team with definite potential to improve as well. And then we have Kurt Zouma. For me, goes into the bench and squad players. I think he's a quality defender as he proved on loan at Everton, but has struggled with those mistakes in for Chelsea this season. I think a bench / squad place for him is where it is. And then finally we have Emerson, who I would put into sell as well. I think he's hyped up by Chelsea fans purely because their left back situation can be quite bad when they're playing a 4 at the back. But for me, I really don't rate him at all, and I think he deserves to go into the sell category. Anyway guys, that is the end of today's video. Tell me down below which ones you think I got right and which ones you think I got drastically wrong. And if you are brand new to my channel, please do subscribe and make sure you do leave a like, and I'll see you guys later.